Welcome back, everybody, to Slow Your Roll, where we've got Rec, we've got Handwork, and Jet to my left and right. What's up?
What it do?
What it do?
What it do?
I'm about to hit you guys with something right now because we're getting into the nitty-gritty of the show. You ready for this? The all-time quotable Jabril Peppers from down the road. Boom! We want them up. Anyway, now that we got that out of our system, let's talk about the implosion that was had. And that's the reason we brought up that quote, folks, is the Giants were just atrocious the other night. What was your two immediate takeaways about that game and about the nature of where the New York Football Giants are right now?
I mean, it's a big turnaround from last season. You know, Dable won Coach of the Year last year, as everybody knows. And then to just turn around and this horrid start. You know, you barely got one win against the Cardinals, which you were lucky to get in the first place. You have to look to first, you know, that $160 million contract you shelled out to Daniel Jones.
Yes.
And, you know, the offensive line also gave up 11 sacks on top of it. So
11?
Clearly the team has a lot of issues, and I think a lot needs to be addressed at the front office level, much less at the coaching level.
And to mention that the Giants have only led this season for like 19 seconds.
Yep.
That's all. And they haven't had the ball like with the lead, which is crazy. The O-line is a serious problem for the Giants. And then another thing is Darren Waller, one of their tight ends, it doesn't seem like him and Daniel Jones are on the right page. Like, his wide receivers are very young. And it just doesn't seem like the offense is on the right page, and they aren't, like, connecting with each other. So that's, I think, one of the biggest problems with the Giants right now.
Absolutely. I'd agree. And, you know, they're missing Saquon Barkley, too, at the moment, which doesn't help.
Yeah, that hurts.
Run game. I saw a clip of right tackle Evan Neal last game blocking one of their own players.
Yeah.
Causing a sack.
I think it was he blocked, like, Waller. Like, he pushed him out of the way.
Yeah.
And led to a sack.
Yeah. It was, I mean, that performance was crazy to see. I mean, you got Andrew Thomas on the other side, who actually is a very good offensive lineman.
Yes.
You know, when there's four other guys not doing their job, it gets a lot tougher.
Yeah. And let's give credit to the Seahawks, too, and especially Devin Witherspoon. He had 2 sacks, and then he had like a 97-yard pick six return. So he played fantastic.
Absolutely. He balled out.
And I think that just confirms where he was picked in the draft.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people said that they maybe took a gamble on him, or even if it wasn't regarded as a gamble, maybe picked him higher than to be expected.
Absolutely.
By many. And to see that sort of game, I mean, we were talking about it being historic. That sort of scenario where, I mean, the interception return, 97 yards.
Yep.
I mean, what are we doing here?
Second longest in Seahawks history.
Yeah. It's historic in many different ways. Let's talk about Seattle for a minute.
Okay.
Like, are they legit? I mean, are they real?
I'd like to say they are. You know, I think that was a bit of a fluke, week one, losing to the Rams in the way that they did. Even though the Rams haven't looked like a bad team by any means.
Sure.
But, you know, they have a win on the record like the Lions, who, you know, are also 3-1. So, you know, beat the Chiefs. I think there is legitimacy to that roster, and I think they have some big superstars. And I think their biggest downfall is just depth top to bottom.
Okay. Yeah. And to think about the job that Pete Carroll is doing, this dude is now over the hump of 70 years old. He's been in the NFL for a first stint. He went with, you know, the USC Trojans for all the years and all the successes that he had there. And then he's done it at a high level with Seattle, which severely outclassed his first NFL stint. It's just incredible. What would you say about kind of the keys to Carroll's success now that he's, you know, aging like a fine wine?
Yeah, I mean, he's done like a great job, and his track record proves that. And I remember, I think it was 2 years ago, the Seahawks were struggling a little bit. And a lot of people were having the conversation, is Pete Carroll about to retire, and are they about to move on from him? And then last year, they rallied to make the playoffs. They got a great offense. They got Kenneth Walker. Geno Smith has been a great acquisition for them. They got the wide receivers and DK Metcalf, and their defense has played really well. So,
yes.
I mean, Pete Carroll just finds a way that if the team's not doing so well, he always finds a way to keep them together and find the best players that can make them win.
Absolutely.
I liked your mention of the receiving core. You know, when your number 3 guys, Jackson Smith and Jigba, you're probably doing pretty well offensively.
That was a great pick, too, by the way.
Any other surprises from the NFL that we're thinking about as we're moving on through the weeks?
Just this morning got announced Christian Gonzalez out for the season, torn labrum, as caused by his dislocated shoulder over the weekend. That was, front runner, maybe second for defensive rookie of the year, so that's a big hit for the Patriots. But that's why they made a move for J.C. Jackson this morning for the
Yes.
Chargers. Got him back on the roster. Maybe Bill can get him back to his old form.
Yeah, what do you think about the likelihood that happens? Because we discussed Belichick at length last week about kind of what his role is as the head of the Patriots now compared to what it was and how much value he's added over time. Do you think that he is capable of exerting the energy and effort out of a guy like Jackson?
I can't promise you Jackson's going to get back to that prime level he was at, but I can promise you he's going to be better than he was in Brandon Staley's system, as nobody has performed in Brandon Staley's system.
Sure.
Other than Khalil Mack last week.
True.
being
True.
The only exception with 6 sacks in 1 week somehow.
Yeah. Somehow, right?
Saving Staley's job once again.
Yeah. Oh my. We don't even need to keep going on that. I mean, wow.
One thing that really stood out to me across the NFL is the Pittsburgh Steelers. They lost 30-6 to C.J. Stroud and the Texans,
Yes.
a rookie QB, and
Yes.
Kenny Pickett. He really hasn't looked that good. A lot of people thought he was going to take the next step this year. Najee Harris hasn't looked really good, and it just seems that team's not really on the same page. So, and they have to go play a really good Ravens team this weekend. So, I feel like this week against the Ravens is really going to set the tone of what direction that the Steelers are going to this season, and what is Mike Tomlin going to do about that? That's very interesting.
Yes, because of course the winning record streak, which is still unbroken, is in serious jeopardy this year, and that division is getting tougher and tougher. I would say, as we continue to move along here. What do you think is wrong with Pickett? I mean, because that's the truth. Is that Pitt? He was very good, and he kind of caught the world by storm. With like one example is the fake slide that he had, where he acted as though he was going down, dodged around that back safety, and then just sauntered into the end zone. Plays like this that are moments of electricity, but it hasn't panned out in the NFL. So I would say is like, what are your concerns, and why has he stayed grounded relatively during the league?
I think when you look at first-round quarterback prospects specifically, usually they have one tool in their arsenal that most would consider elite. I think Pickett came into the draft with solid tools across the board, but nothing elite to set him apart from anybody else, and I think that is really what's shown.
Okay, for sure. And then with the Steelers, is like on the outside, they have some weapons, but is it enough?
I mean, yeah, you have Pickens and Freiermuth, and then it falls down to Deontay Johnson after that, and then there's not a lot after that. I mean, Najee Harris is solid. The O-line isn't great, though, so the run game doesn't open up a lot either. So, I mean, there's a lot of issues throughout the roster in general. The defense is really good, I'll tell you that, but the offense needs a lot of help in the offseason.
Yeah. Another team that has really caught me by surprise so far is the Cincinnati Bengals.
Oh, yeah.
Losing,
Yeah,
I believe
so
it
right.
was 28-3 to the Tennessee Titans.
Yes.
Yep.
They're
That was
1-3, and I know we've had this conversation in past episodes about not to hit the panic button when they were 0-2, with the fact that they were 0-2 last year. Are we getting to a point where we need to press the panic button with that team? Because, I mean, Joe Burrow hasn't looked that great.
No.
Ever since signing that monster contract, T. Higgins hasn't looked good. And it just seems like that team is not on the same page.
I would say the problem arises within the fact that they don't have a reliable backup quarterback on the roster. And with Burrow's injury, he's looked like a shell of his former self.
Yeah.
You know, he looks like a statue in the pocket right now, just dealing with that injury. He's not been at 100% in any of these games, and I think that shows, and teams can scheme around that and make the whole offense fall apart real quickly. So, I think since he could benefit from having him sit a couple games and just eating their losses, and then actually getting back at full strength rather than trying to manage this and never having him at 100%.
One last thing before we go to our next topic is I was curious. We've heard a lot of news about the Chicago Bears and it's not positive. Let's just frame it that way. The negative is that they squandered a major lead that they had last week and couldn't close that game out. And the narrative, excuse me, has shifted to that. Wow, I need to clear that up.
Yeah.
That they are going to, in theory, have the number 1 and number 2 pick.
Yep.
And so, what are you guys seeing with that? What do you think the direction might be with regards to the continuation of Fields or the addition of, say, a Caleb Williams? And what are you seeing there?
I think most likely, unless Fields can continue to play from the Broncos game, which I can tell you he can't. I don't think any quarterback right now has been doing a 4 TD pace every single game. So I think unless he continues some type of elite run here for the rest of the season, I think you get a situation where you end up taking Caleb Williams first overall, and then if you still do have the 2nd overall pick on top of that, you take Marvin Harrison Jr. You get 2 generational prospects, dynamic duo there on offense, and you build on that.
Sure.
Yeah, I think the Bears need to move on Fields. I think he's proven that he's not going to be a franchise QB with that team. Maybe he goes somewhere else and he does spectacular, but it's just he has proven over this last year that he's just not going to be that guy for this Bears team. And I think the Bears are just they're looking forward to the draft. And if they can get that number 1 pick, as you mentioned, they can get someone like a Caleb Williams. And they can get someone like a Marvin Harrison Jr. That gives them an opportunity to reset their franchise and start over and hope for the future.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. You know, what was fascinating to me was how the Broncos, as we had discussed last week on Slow Your Roll, just got run out of the building by the Miami Dolphins. But then they looked to be pretty good, even though they were down big to Chicago and stormed back. So do you think that could be something where they gain momentum going into these next weeks?
Yeah, I totally agree because they play the Jets this weekend, and that's another opportunity for them to get a win and move to 2-3 on the year. So it was definitely a good thing that the Broncos were able to come back in that game, get themselves a win, and then you go and play the Jets, which aren't really good team, and have their own quarterback situation going on. So yeah, if the Broncos can get a win against the Jets this weekend, that can really give them some momentum going into the next couple weeks of the season.
Because Russell Wilson looked pretty good.
He did.
I mean, all things considered, 21 and 28, I believe, for 223, 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, he's looked solid all year long, I'd say.
Yeah.
He hasn't been the issue. I would not put the blame on him.
Which, honestly, and I have to say this, like, that's a cool thing.
Yeah.
Given what the narrative was about him last season.
Absolutely.
Right, in his first with Denver. That just had quite a few conditions that did not go their way, didn't fall to his side. It's been fun to see that he's kind of reinvigorated and starting to figure it out with the new franchise.
Absolutely. And one guy I wanted to mention in that offense was Marvin Mims. You know, he's been playing about 12 to 13 snaps a game, and he's the Broncos' leading receiver and touchdown scorer. Now, I don't know what's going on inside that locker room that makes them not keep putting him out on the field, but I think he should be out on the field. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. So what have his numbers looked like? Just to break that down, give us a little bit.
He's had a few deep touchdowns on the year. I think he's had 3 total touchdowns on the year, which is solid. He's a rookie. We're 4 weeks into the season.
No doubt.
And then he's got, I have to look, but I want to say like 270, 300 yards on the year.
Okay.
Right about there. So.
Yeah. In 4 games, that's nothing to scoff at.
Yeah.
Especially being a new addition, as we've said.
Absolutely.
Yep.
I love it. Hey, do we want to go into what were we talking about? The Rookie of the Year or no? There was one debate we were talking about.
I think we were talking about the rookie QB.
Oh, yes. So, thank you.
Yep.
I had to shake that one off. But do we want to go there or do we want to move on?
I think we can go there.
I think we can go there.
Okay.
Take it there.
Yeah, let's go there.
Okay.
First up, talk to me about Bryce Young. That's the one that we really need to know about.
Well, I mean, number 1 pick in the draft, the expectations were through the roof. Obviously, as every number 1 pick is, but that Panthers roster has a lot of problems. You got a new head coach.
Yes.
Top to bottom, it's a whole new roster, whole new team. So you just gotta work with what you got for now at least until you get to another draft. And right now, Bryce Young doesn't got a whole lot. Doesn't have much of an offensive line. Doesn't have much of a wide receiver core. Doesn't have much of a run game.
No.
The defense is okay, and that's about it. But there's not enough help for a rookie quarterback, and I know there's been rumors about them trading for a number one wide receiver this season. So maybe they do that because they see that they need an option for him to throw to reliably.
For sure.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's too early to panic about Bryce Young being a bust. I still think he has the opportunity to be a great QB, and he just needs a team around him. I mean, he's got wide receivers. He's got a veteran in Adam Thielen who's entering the final stages of his career. And then you've got like DJ Chark. So he really doesn't have that much. And he needs a better line. So I think if the Panthers, if they can work on that in the draft, they'll be in better shape for next year.
Sam Howell.
Not a rookie QB, but we'll throw him in there
No.
for some reason.
My bad. The reason I say that is that he's been captivating actually as a commander, which is kind of interesting.
Yes, now that he's actually getting that playing time full time now.
Yes.
You're right.
Yes. Which that's kind of funny.
Yeah.
That was a blooper reel, y'all, with conviction too. That's funny, man. I don't know how I spaced that.
Because I think most Commanders fans also spaced the first half of their last season too.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Understood.
Yep.
Okay. Let's go to the obvious one, CJ Stroud.
he's looked incredible. He still hasn't thrown an interception. The longest anyone's gone without throwing an interception as a rookie. It's incredible, really, especially with we came in this year thinking that Texans offense was abysmal outside of David Pierce.
Mm-hmm.
Then you got guys like Nico Collins performing, Tank Dell performing. That whole offense has looked transformed.
Yes.
So it's incredible. And he was a guy that came in with a lot of doubts. The Ohio State quarterback rooms get a lot of hate over the years for lots of busts coming out of there. And I think the misconception people make with that is it's harder to evaluate quarterbacks that come out of programs like that because they have the best receiving core year after year. So you don't actually see what they're working, what they can handle under adversity because they always have the best on their side. It's the same reason there's not always a ton of great prospects out of Alabama at the quarterback position, even though they produce every other position well at the NFL.
Sure.
Yeah, you bring up a good point. I like that Wolverine and Buckeye connection. CJ Stroud and Nico Collins. That's pretty neat. CJ Stroud, he's looked terrific so far, and he really has an opportunity to prove that he can be a great quarterback in the NFL and basically bring an end to that curse of Ohio State quarterbacks not being that good.
Anthony Richardson.
He's looked great too. I mean, I think he needs to slide a little more, and I think his coaches are telling him to slide a little more. I don't think he will, but I think that's just him. Everything I heard about him in the offseason was how much he just loves the sport, loves the fans, just wants to work hard for this team. He became a leader right away for the roster. So I think that was cool to see in the offseason, that maturity. And he's one of the younger quarterbacks. So that's been really awesome to see from him. And, he's performed well. And, as expected, there's those mistakes that show from time to time. But, some of the throws he can make, the velocity he can put on it, the escapability he has, it's incredible. And there's throws he can make that, 99% of other quarterbacks can't. So I think his ceiling is through the roof, and I think we haven't even seen a glimpse of what he could be yet.
Yeah, Anthony Richardson, I think, has been one of the surprises of the rookie QBs. A lot of people had doubts about him coming in as an NFL quarterback with, some of the struggles that he had in Florida and the preseason, the awful interceptions that he had. And he's really proven all those doubters wrong so far, and he does have, an opportunity to prove himself as a franchise quarterback for the Colts.
Absolutely.
To me, that feels like a pretty succinct measure of where the NFL is at.
Absolutely.
So let's switch to collegiate football.
Okay.
I love it. Here we go. It's like game day from the basement, but not really. Let's do it.
All right.
What do we think in terms of teams who are on upset alert this week?
I'd like to hear from you, Rick.
Really?
Who's on your upset watch?
Wow. You can't really consider the Oklahoma-Texas game an upset, necessarily.
Yeah, it's tough when it's 12-3. It'll be an upset, but it won't be.
Yeah.
Let's all storm the field. This is crazy.
Yeah.
If it weren't a rivalry game.
That game can go, as we've seen in past years, it can go either way.
Absolutely.
It's a huge time rivalry game, and it's one of the best games of the year
Usually, yeah.
for sure.
What would you say about Washington State?
They could definitely lose this weekend against a really good UCLA team. UCLA is a 3.5-point favorite. I'm looking at it right now. And Washington State, they're approaching the top 10.
Yeah,
So-
you know, it's funny you say that. I was just going to bring that up. You know, I'd love to say they are an upset watch, but they're actually underdogs in every sports book, so I can't say that, which is just unreal that the 13th team in the country is
Yeah.
an underdog
Yeah.
to the, 22nd, 23rd?
UCLA, they're unranked.
Yeah, so my point exactly.
Yep.
You know,
That's it.
Here's another one. How crazy would it be? We saw Georgia struggle a little bit last week against Auburn. Kentucky dismantled Florida last week.
Yeah.
Yup.
Yeah.
How crazy would it be? We see a red-hot Kentucky team go on the road, 20th in the country. They go on the road and upset number 1 Georgia.
If that rushing offense picks up where it left off, I see no reason that's impossible. I absolutely see it's possible that Georgia goes down this weekend.
I know you certainly talked off camera, though, before the show. We were having a discussion about Kentucky and their abilities to run the football.
Yep.
Completely just move guys off the line of scrimmage in Florida's, front 4, front 7.
Absolutely.
That, to me, shows the type of job that Mark Stoops has done at Kentucky.
Yeah.
When they're able to do that, to other sort of premier upper echelon SEC football teams.
Absolutely.
What do you think about that? What do you think about Stoops and Kentucky winning like they are at what's regarded as a basketball school?
I mean, it's really impressive. The SEC is a tough place to come up from the bottom. I think it's easier to just stay at the top than it is to come up from the bottom. So when you have 12 carries for 250 yards in the first half from one guy, you're clearly doing lots of things right, and it's not just that one guy having a crazy game. You're doing everything right at every level.
I feel like USC has to be on upset alert one of these weeks to somebody
Yeah,
because they keep skirting out of these games.
they do.
Right, particularly the recent one against the Colorado Buffaloes.
Yep.
That was quite a showcase, actually,
Yeah.
in terms of, what it became.
It wasn't a game until it was.
That was exactly. And that's as funny as that is, that you phrase it that way. It's true. It was a 41-14 game. SC was marching up and down the field, and the Buffaloes didn't necessarily have an answer. But they flipped a serious switch. So what went into that, and why is it that Colorado keeps starting so freaking slow in these games?
I think it's just the short route running that they have been going to, the wide receiver screens. They've been going to it in the absence of Travis Hunter. And I think it's just led to a stagnant offense. And then, once they finally get in a hole, they start pushing the ball downfield. And I think that's when Shedeur Sanders really opened up the game last week.
Sure. And I'm really glad you brought that up because his completion percentage has been ultra high all year. And a lot of that is trying to get in rhythm, right?
Yeah.
Establishing yourself in the flow of the game. But his statistics have looked good at the end of each game for the most part.
Yes.
So I'm really fascinated by you saying that because I hadn't thought about it that way. And I really appreciate that.
Well, I appreciate that. And it's, one thing I also thought about during that game as the comeback was mounting is, what if Travis Hunter and Shiloh Sanders were both here right now?
Yeah.
That's your two best defenders.
Yeah.
You could have been looking at at least a closer ball game throughout had they been there.
Williams did his thing,
Yep.
of course. I mean, this dude just keeps churning. I mean, he's squarely in the favorite seat right now for the Heisman, probably, is what I would say. Even though Michael Penix hasn't done anything to disavow him from the conversation necessarily. That will be true until either one of those two teams drops a game.
It's really that Heisman race as far as the Pac-12 goes. It's really going to come down to when Oregon, Washington, and USC all play each other, and all those teams, are going to fall to one another at some point. So it really comes down to how those games play out.
Well, I think October 14th is the day we're going to find out when Washington plays Oregon and then USC goes on the road to play Notre Dame.
There it is.
Will one of those teams fall?
There it is. Do you think that USC could have trouble with Arizona?
I think they could. I mean, Arizona only lost by 7 to Washington. I know it's at the Coliseum, but I could see Arizona having a real shot at potentially pulling off an upset.
Shout out Tristan Davis, my guy, Ruthless T, who's a defensive lineman for Arizona. Just had to throw that out there. But as well, Kobe McCallum, my guy, Kobe Mack, who's doing video coordination for University of Washington. So that was interesting to have a little bit of shared history across there. But do you think that Arizona could maybe make waves against USC?
I think they don't come out and get blown out or anything like that, but I don't necessarily think they have more of a shot to win as opposed to any other team that has played USC this upcoming week, if that's fair to say.
Yeah,
So
I think that is.
USC is a 21.5 point favorite. I could totally see Arizona covering that spread.
Me too.
Yeah, I could see it being about 17, 18,
Yep.
potentially less.
Yeah.
But
For sure. Is there anybody else who's on notice, you think, throughout the landscape this week?
I was looking at the games. I mean, anything can happen in college football, but there wasn't really one that totally stood out to me.
Sure.
I mean, Michigan going down the road in Minnesota. I doubt it.
Yeah.
Doubt it.
I have a point I wanted to bring up, continuing on with the Pac-12. How big of a threat is the Pac-12 to produce the national title winner this year?
Pretty large is the short answer. I think that any one of USC, Washington, Oregon are in the conversation and actually have the wherewithal and the talent and the coaching to do it. It comes down to matchup largely,
Yep.
who you see both in the conference championship, but then as you enter the playoff, who are you playing, where are you playing at, who is healthy at that time. There's a whole lot of variables, right? But I think largely those three teams should be considered among the top 8, which they have been all year.
Absolutely.
So that's, we'll
yeah,
see.
there's one team that not a lot of people are talking about, and I don't think this is a team that has the capability to get to the college football playoff, but they can definitely cause some chaos in the Pac-12 in terms of a couple, like either USC, Oregon, or Washington in the playoff, is Oregon State.
Yeah.
I mean, going and beating Utah, I mean, by, I think it was 2 touchdowns and just totally shutting that offense down.
Yeah, I mean, sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah.
But the one kind of amendment I would make is that it's still without Cam Rising.
True.
That's a challenge to get over.
But
continue.
I definitely think Oregon State, with everything that they've been through, being left out, not being able to join a conference with the Pac-12 breaking out,
Yes.
they've definitely been playing with a chip on their shoulder, and I definitely can see them knocking off one of the big boys and causing some chaos.
Now, what about Washington State in all this? Still undefeated, just beat Oregon State. Cameron Ward is a Heisman contender right now.
Yeah.
Nobody's talking about them either. Those
Yeah.
2 teams are getting left in the dust, and Washington State hasn't even lost.
Yeah, it's another team. I just think Washington State and Oregon State, they're both playing with adversity, and they can totally make some noise and cause chaos.
Absolutely.
In terms of the college football playoff.
Absolutely.
Is there any conversation about where those two are headed conference-wise?
You know, I'm going to put out a guess here. I think we hear soon that they're going to the Big 12. I think the Big 12 is the best fit for them geographically and with the amount of teams in the other conferences. I think with the level they're playing at, they're going to get an invite from the Big 12 real soon.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's super interesting because for a while it had been the Mountain West. It had been going independent. It had been not fitting the bill for a large Power 5, situation. And let's face it, the way they are playing with the dollars they've earned, Oregon State making a renovation to Reser Stadium, it's starting to trend to the side where they're growing as a program and as a brand on the national landscape.
Yep.
And so it would almost be foolish for a major conference not to invite them. So I appreciate hearing what you have to say about that. And I wonder is and this is rhetorical.
Yeah.
I don't expect to answer, but what the timeline is, because we're in the middle of the season, right? We're talking about coaching switches. We're talking about, largely logistical. How does that work to realign into a separate conference? It'll be interesting to see whether we know soon or not.
It's just a matter of when they decide to make that announcement, I think. But I'd put the House on the Big 12.
Okay.
I honestly think it could come at any time. I mean, we saw the announcement like right before like week 1 of Friday's games that Cal, Stanford, and SMU were going to the ACC. So I think it could totally come at any time during the season.
Absolutely.
Absolutely right.
And wow, I mean, to consider that move, if it were to happen, would be the complete dissolution of the Pac-12.
Yep.
It just would be fairy dust. It wouldn't be there anymore.
Nope.
After the way it's gone this year, wow. It would just be hard to rationalize that.
Yeah, it's crazy they're falling before Big 12 or ACC when they're playing like this.
Yes.
So
I tell you what, the Pac-12 is having a real fun farewell party this year.
Yeah. And I think, it'll spark a conversation as to how legit all of this stuff is from the standpoint of could it have been avoided?
Yeah.
Because of the product they're putting forward
Yep.
and on the table, on the national scene. So that's all interesting. Let's go somewhere else, though.
Okay.
Where do we want to head?
I'll follow you to the Earth's end.
And look, where do we? That was so good. That was so good. Like a shepherd leading the sheep.
Yep.
Where do you want to go?
Do you want to talk about Urban Meyer?
Yeah.
We do.
Yeah, I think so.
We don't, but we will.
Would
We
you?
will.
Would you?
Yes. We do.
We don't, but we will.
I don't think anybody wants to talk about Urban Meyer.
No, except those that do.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
the Twitter space
It's been going crazy.
has been willing to discuss the signing of Mr. Meyer, potentially. What, for everyone out there, what has the story arc been for all this? Where's the information come from? Who is saying what? And how real is it that Urban Meyer could make an appearance in East Lansing?
I mean, nothing's impossible. And I know he came out today and said that he wasn't looking into it, but he said the same thing like right before he became the head coach at Ohio State. He was like, yeah, I'm more focused on spending Thanksgiving with my family. And then he becomes the head coach of Ohio State. So because of what he said, I wouldn't rule out him coming or not coming just yet.
Sure.
But to be honest, I really don't see it happening. I think they're going to go after someone like a Mike Elko
Okay.
or like the Kansas head coach.
Yeah, Lance Leipold.
Yeah, something
Yeah.
like that. I just don't see Urban Meyer going to a program like Michigan State.
Okay.
Understandable.
Yeah. What do you think, Jed? Or do you even want to?
I think it's incredibly unlikely. If it does, obviously Michigan State instantly becomes an overnight, top 25 team for the next years to come. So that's that. But I don't think it's a hire the school can make given the PR situation that they're currently in.
Yeah, and all that means is that Urban Meyer's had trouble following him with certain conduct situations over time at Ohio State and even, in Jacksonville. Most recently. And at Florida, too.
Throughout Florida. He's been waived throughout the state.
Yes. I mean, some people would say that if Florida were to fall below sea level and be covered in water, the reason would be because of the waves that Urban Meyer made. There. Yes, that is something to watch for. But seriously, you're so right. It's a conflict of interest, I think, for Michigan State to do that after what they as a program have gone through, especially so early in this season, but over the last many years. Would it be Phi Beta Kappa, quote unquote, a smart decision to go that direction? I don't know. I don't think so.
It's just tough to justify.
Yeah, for sure. And a lot of people, I think, would be significantly concerned about that if it were to happen.
No doubt.
I agree.
But the dollars are there.
They
That's
are.
true.
You
That's
got
true.
the donors, you got everything.
Yeah, the monetary value is there.
The dollars are there to go anywhere. NFL,
Yeah.
anywhere. They can, barring NFL head coaches, they can take anyone.
Yeah.
Yep.
And they just announced yesterday that Tom Izzo is going to help with the whole recruiting process to find the next head coach.
Which makes sense. You know, I think he is somebody that's been a beacon of light and hope around the university forever. Literally, I mean, since he's been in East Lansing, and has such a high level of community involvement that it only makes sense
He's earned
to have him on the inside of that, deal making process. So that's all good.
Yep.
That's all good. I'm glad we got that out of the way.
Yep.
That felt like something we had to talk about, even if it were just brief. What exactly do we want to go into now?
How about historic stadiums?
Okay.
Okay. Here's a proposition for you folks. Why don't we name one by one across this way the top 5 historic stadiums, and we each craft a list out of that. And so I guess what I mean by that is we'll all have 5 at
Yep.
the end of this, and we'll just make a list out of it. So who wants to go first?
I'm not going to name them one through 5, but one of them is the Rose Bowl.
I'll go across town.
Okay.
LA Memorial Coliseum.
Okay. Fenway Park.
Mm-hmm.
Yankee Stadium.
Mm-hmm.
New or old?
Old one.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Wrigley Field.
I was gonna say Wrigley, but that's my number 2, so I still gotta keep it there.
Someone said Fenway already, right?
Well, 1 and 2,
All right.
but you can still name them.
Sure.
Yeah,
It's just a top 5.
Yeah, Fenway's one of them.
Yeah, of course.
Has to.
Has to.
Has to.
Has
So I'll go there. Yeah. That's my third.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I put Wrigley on there too, so that's 4.
Okay. Lambeau Field.
Wow. I love that.
Yeah.
That's very good.
Yup.
Man. I'm almost like, do I want to go with Soldier Field?
I thought about that too.
Yeah.
I was thinking about that, and I shied away from
I
it
think-
eventually.
I think I'm going to go with Soldier.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I think I'll put the Rose Bowl at 4.
Tough. Trying to think football or baseball. You know what? I'll go hockey.
Wow.
Joe Louis Arena.
Ooh. That was crazy.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with the Rose Bowl.
Okay.
At 5.
Okay. I just because we haven't brought it into the equation, I'm gonna go Madison Square Garden.
That's
Oh,
a good
my.
one. I didn't even
What
think
a
about
good
that
pull.
one.
Yeah.
What a good pull. I wish we could have named golf courses, but that would have been completely separate. Augusta National.
Augusta's on
Yeah,
there for
period.
me for sure.
We'll do that at the after party.
Okay, no doubt.
Yep.
And after the party, it's the after party. And after the party. No, we don't need to keep it.
Absolutely not.
But, wow, that's a good list. That was top 5 most historic, we'll call it,
Storied stadiums.
stadiums across America.
Another one that I really like, just because I'm looking at your T-shirt, is Notre Dame Stadium.
Yeah.
I love that stadium.
Yeah.
That is one special place and a special campus.
I'm excited because I'm going there in, about a week and a half. So that's going to be really
That'll be a
cool.
good time.
Actually, I'm leaving 9 days from today. So yeah, basically it's a week and a half.
We'll get an inside report, folks.
Yes, USC Notre Dame. We're going to do a breakdown of that one. Reason being, we got a guy on the inside.
Absolutely.
That's it. Maybe we'll get Pop Rec, my guy Ken, on the show that week. That would be really something.
Definitely.
To have a Zoom call. For those of you out there who are familiar with our show going back to last year, we had my Pops on,
We did.
which was quite something. But nevertheless, that's where we're at. And anything more you guys want to go with?
I think I'm good.
I think I'm good to go.
And that'll be all. That's a haul, folks. Yeah. That's been Slow Your Roll for the day. And any last closing thoughts?
You got anything to say, Caden?
I'm all good.
I'm
I
good
think we're
too.
set.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's been it, folks. Slow Your Roll. We keep coming out with social media posts. My guy JB been killing it on social media. That's major stuff. And we just thank you guys for the support and hope that you have a great week coming up. And we'll come back next week.